One away from a magical 200th show next Wednesday. So gear up for that one. In the meantime, it's merely 199 here on the Voice of College Football FSU with, of course, at the top right next to me, Jason Parker, NBC6. Down below him, Logan Robinson, Noel Game Day, and of course, the famed fullback 2002 through 2005. 36 degrees, Sports Den Live, fifth quarter college football. James Coleman. How we doing today?
Don't sell yourself short, Mark. 199 is a good number to be at. You're at 199. We didn't think we'd get this far. So be proud of who you are.
I never thought that we wouldn't get this far.
I think we're also missing the main question that we need to ask here. James, How was Arizona? James Coleman obviously was at Super Bowl 57, Chiefs with a 38-35 win over the Eagles. We need the full recap.
I can't. That's a whole show in of itself. I haven't even been able to get a recap in on my show without covering stuff. But I mean, it. I mean, I'm still tired. If that answers your question, but Arizona's like I've never been to Arizona before, but like I want to go back. Like that's like for the first time in my life, I found a place that I would actually be willing to leave Florida. Like I would leave Florida to go to move the food was so good, the atmosphere was great. Um, I could wear my suits, move around, and not have to worry about sweating when I was outside, which was crazy. Like the only time I was sweating was when there was a lot of people around, and it's really that humidity that comes in. But outside of that, the weather's so dry that it was like cool, but I liked it. I can't wait. But the overall Super Bowl, it's in Vegas next year, so I told my entire team I'm bringing everybody next year. So it's gonna be great. As far as like the coverage part, work is work. I mean, an interview is an interview. I mean, if you're really caught up on like trying to see different celebrities and trying to get their takes and do traditional interviews, then you know that's kind of cool. If you really get caught up in a lot of like you see it's the who's who of sports media is out there. I was at a Rick Ross party, met Sage Steele, met
Ricky Rose.
Ebo, I think it's Ebo Achu or whatever his name is, the Achu cat. He's kind of making the rounds. I saw him. But they treat media. The one thing I'll say is get credentialed because they treat media like celebrities. Like so, I went to a Top Golf gifting suite. So like some of my content is now just starting to get released, and like I got about $1,200 worth of stuff from at Top Golf. It was called the Luxury Gifting Suite. Then I went to the Puma Gifting Suite. Then I went to the Adidas one. I didn't get a chance to. I overslept the Nike party. The Nike they wasn't giving any shoes at Nike, but they gave personalized hoodies and T-shirts. Like you can go make your own. So it's a 101. Um, my son got Patrick Mahomes' signature shoe, and I do too, but I won't wear them. I don't really like them. No offense to Pat Mahomes, but my son thinks it's the greatest shoe and the greatest sweatshirt he's ever gotten in his life. But yeah, other than that, it's just a lot of partying, a lot of networking, and we get to do it all over again in 2 weeks at the NFL Combine.
And I couldn't agree with you more. You got to get credentialed. I've done this for 5 Super Bowls. It's amazingly phenomenal. But I have to ask you one question before we talk about Florida State. You cover the Jaguars. I cover the Dolphins. Logan covers the Bucks. We all know the Bucks aren't going to do it all. But which team out of the 3 of them has the best shot?
The Jaguars.
Jaguars.
Jaguars easily. And I wouldn't have said that until the Jaguars have a 3-year window right now, which most teams do. You have a young quarterback still in the rookie contract. You have your running back still in the rookie contract. You have your tight end that's reasonable, that was doing his thing. You have, even though he's 37 years old, but you have your number 1 wide receiver, Calvin Ridley, who was doing his thing, who's still under rookie contract. You've got Christian Kirk, who now is making a reasonable $10 million a year, 20. I forgot whatever the number was, but it doesn't look as bad as it did when he first signed because of the new salary cap. So when you think about it, on offense, you've got your quarterback, your top 2 are actually in Zay Jones, who had a good year, but you have your top 3 wide receiver, 3 wide receivers, your number 1 tight end, and your running back, all under reasonable contracts. So offense wins games. which in the NFL, or puts butts in seats. On the defensive side of the ball, you've got the number one overall pick, who in Trayvon. I was about to say something else, which is not good, but I can't think of Trayvon's last name. I'm just gonna leave it like that. You've
Walker.
got Trayvon Walker. Thank you, I appreciate it. You've got you're basically on defense. You're another cornerback or safety away from actually stopping teams and being a little bit better, or even an elite D tackle. Something that's going to create more pressure to the quarterback, whether it's stopping, being better in the passing game, or actually attacking. But they actually have a competent coach. When I look at what the Dolphins are doing, I think they right now, the only time they play good, and this probably going to sound insensitive, but if you really look at it, it makes sense. Before Tua's brains got scrambled, he was atrocious. He was mid. I won't say atrocious. He was the epitome of mid, like the personification of mid. Once he got concussed, he actually played really, really good. So I'm of the assumption that Tua was out there throwing the ball, did not know where he was at, and he was playing good. But then he got unconcussed and started playing back to what he was, and then got knocked out again. They don't care about the quarterback position. Now, if they get Lamar Jackson, which is one of the rumors in this trade, then God bless. I would retract my statement. But right now, I don't really know what's going on in Miami, but they do have two wide receivers that will make it difficult to not say they're going to win a lot of games if they get a competent quarterback. But you also have Xavier Howard, who's still over there playing defense, who it's his job right now to give points to the other team.
All right, Logan. Sorry, Mark. We're done talking about the NFL now. We can go back to talking about college football. We just have to get that out of the way.
Oh, but keeping it to the NFL, Mark, sorry about that.
I'm good.
Sorry
There's nothing else to talk about, but these do get chopped up into segments. That is the sole purpose of this show.
Yeah, this is Florida State worthy right here. This is Florida State news. Shout out to Florida State flexing on all the broke boy rivals by having two of our current players be able to go and ball out in Phoenix at the Super Bowl, and Jordan Travis and Trey Benson. Funny news breaking. Like, I like Trey Benson. Trey Benson, listen, I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret. This world that your guys are now in is not as big as what you think it is. There's a lot of pretty women in this world, but a lot of those pretty women are condensed in a very small area, and most athletes know them. You got to watch where you're shooting your shot at, broski. I don't want any harm to come to you. So you had to go in there and be like, hey, I'm not mad at you though, who you shot your shot at, but just know, we know. and to his defense, I like the way he approached it. He said, I'm going to be in the Super Bowl. I know you're going to be there, and I want to see it. And I'm like, man, I love that. That's what I'm talking about, B. To let them go. But it was just, out of his price range and his age range. But I love, the fact that those guys did that. But the one thing I got on the people who helped make that happen about was, we got to start using the network. I could have had those guys come with me. And they would have been they didn't come early enough to go to the Rick Ross concert. But I could have took them to see Drake. We could have went to go see Cardi B. They could have came to the Puma gifting suite with me. They could have come to the Adidas gifting suite. And just imagine how much more cool content they would have got, because it would have just looked like Florida State was just letting these boys go out and splurge. If you want to see what it's like, go to @BigGameJames_36 and go check out my IG and see how many bags we left with out of the Puma suite and the Adidas suite. Oh, I haven't put the Adidas one up yet, but that one should be going up tomorrow. But I thought that was pretty cool, especially in the NIL climate, where everybody's trying to prove that we take care of our players more. I think we were the only school to have people out there representing, and I know for a fact that price tag was hefty. And I only know because I know the business write-offs that I had to do with Did Media Group weren't necessarily fun, but it was cool.
But James, John Ruiz is buying Miami players Honda Civics, so I mean that's the same thing. So it works out, right?
John Ruiz is writing checks that he can't cash too. Even though, but okay, to use Jason's word, shout out to my former teammate Derek Nicholson. And I'm happy he's working. I'm happy he's employed. I'm happy he's making more money. But I wish him all his position group all the success in the world. But I hope that their defense gets beat by 45 points. I made a bet too with Reggie Wayne on the Florida State Miami game. Reggie doesn't block me, Mark. Like Miami beat people block me, but
Yeah.
I can hang out with their legends, and we can have a civil cigar and a good shot of whiskey. But I got a chance to meet Reggie. I know Reggie. I mean, I see him 2 or 3 times a year, but I got a chance to meet Ed Reed. Ed Reed wouldn't bet me. He said Reggie's smoking. He needs to check with the cigar that Reggie was smoking, or had he been drinking too much. But me and Reggie Wayne have a bet over a box of cigars for whoever wins. And I tried to give him the points. I said, I will give you the spread. Like, just whatever the spread is, you take it. But we're going to beat that. I'm betting that. And he said, no, it's a straight up win. And I said, oh, all right. And I said, I respect it because I told him
from a rival. Yeah.
Right. I told him we were going to beat him by the Abe Lincoln.
Hey, got to win the game.
Right. I told him we were going to beat him by the Abe Lincoln. 4 scores in 7 years. In 7 years ago, that's how bad we going to beat him. But and when Ed saw how quick I was to say, I bet you with the points, I think Ed also, so I know your Miami guys listen to this channel. So I just want you to know, Reggie Wayne coached for the Colts last year, right? And he's still trying to coach a search. And he said if he's going to come to my tailgate because we play in Tallahassee. I told him I like to butter up the hog before the slaughter. So I want to make sure he's good and full and everything before we kill him. But Ed, do we know where Ed Reed was at last year?
On the sideline, in the sideline down here at Hard Rock.
So the confidence should be with the guy who was there, right? But I would lead one to believe that maybe this isn't. I'm getting no trolls. The pictures were there. It's canonized. You can go see it. I'm just saying, Ed Reed is a very proud Miami alum. He loves his university. He loves his alma mater. Oof. But he wouldn't take the bet. That let me know everything that I needed to know.
Ed Reed was a great king, great safety for the University of Miami. Went on to the Ravens, got a Super Bowl for the Ravens, and I mean, he's going to do great things at Bethune-Cookman. Oh, that's right. Sorry.
We talked about that. Me and him talked about that, but that's another show.
Well, I got to say that I'm looking forward to letting a few Miami folks know, who we all know here, that James is cool with Reggie Wayne and Ed Reed.
I mean, I'm hung out with Warren Sapp. It's the only people who make this weird are the people who are weird. We battled each other. I mean, I didn't play against those guys, but they battled some guys, and we've gone through it. I mean, the thing that we all share is the fact that we actually suited up and played against each other. But
guys, can we please refer to them by their proper name? The 20 straight time offseason national champion Miami Hurricanes, best offseason team in college football, 20 straight years.
James, you didn't miss Reggie Wayne by much, did you?
The year he was out, he left in 01, I think.
Yeah.
And then I came in 02, so we kind of I just passed him. But he was a hell of a ball player. Still is, should be in the Hall of Fame. I agree in the NFL Hall of Fame. If this is the Hall of Fame class that they inducted, this is about me. This is about as good pro Hurricane you're gonna get. If this is the Hall of Fame class that got inducted, Reggie Wayne should have been in that.
Yeah.
And Andre Johnson should have too. I'm sorry. I think
easily
should have been.
Yeah, they will be. They'll get there at some point.
There's no Anquan Bolden, but
I wish the NFL was a little bit more transparent about its Hall of Fame inductions, like baseball. There's the ballot. Here's what everybody voted. These are the percentages. They just kind of come out of a dark conference room and let us know who made it. All right. FSU Live, folks, right here at the Voice of College Football each and every Wednesday, 6 Eastern. Jason Parker, Logan Robinson, and, of course, big game James Coleman breaking it down for us.
I just want to hear Logan say something. James and I and Mark, we've talked the whole time. Logan, you alive? You with us?
You brought up the Bucks, and so I reminded that I got to finish up a few things in drafts. So it's allowed me to edit a few things to get that out. We love talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, so Google eats it up. So get that out before 1 o'clock. So it's allowed me to do little things like that because the Bucs don't have a quarterback and nobody wants to coach with Todd Bowles. I don't blame them. So also looking for offensive coordinator.
Your quarterback is Kyle Trask next year. Let's just be honest about it. Calm down.
Not my quarterback. My quarterback's Kenny Pickett, and we're probably gonna win the AFC North next year. So I'm feeling good.
Let's bet on that one. Let's bet on that one.
I will bet. I'll bet a good amount of. I feel amazing. Pittsburgh's way.
I got one for everyone. So I did not look up FSU's number, but the ESPN released floors and ceilings for everyone. What are the reasonable floor and ceiling win totals for Florida State?
I think floor is 8. I'd probably say 8. Ceiling is regular season 11. I mean, I think it all depends on this first 4 games. We talked about it when the schedule came out. You know, in worst case scenario, the first 4 games, Florida State is 2-2 entering that bye week. And then after that, you ask the question, the rest of the season. You've got 3 straight games that are all winnable games at home against Virginia Tech, Syracuse, and Duke. A Wake Forest team that doesn't have Sam Hartman anymore at quarterback. I would argue that right now, Pitt and Duke are our toughest games in the last 8 games of the season. So I think, let's say the bottom drops out and we lose to LSU and Clemson to start in the first 4 games. And let's say we lose to Duke and Pitt. To me, right now, I'd say 8-4.
Jason, you would be happy to know, I just looked it up. You are thinking right in line with a worldwide leader.
Well,
their ceiling is 8-4, and the ceiling is 11-1, and the floor is 8-4.
Yeah, I think I think the floor they're 9. The floor will be 9-3. And I think, to be honest with you, this isn't home because this is the regular season. I personally don't think they beat Clemson twice in the same year. So if they go 12-0, which I think could happen, I think they lose to Clemson in AFC champion. I mean, not AFC championship. Sorry, NFL mind. Switch it back to college. ACC championship. And here's the reason why I believe that they can go undefeated in the regular season. Obviously, we beat an LSU team that I'd argue, from a talent perspective, was better this season than they will be this upcoming season. Now, they'll be coached another year under Brian Kelly, and they'll be more improved in those things, but so will Florida State. Florida State has improved their roster, and they got all the notable guys that were important to come back. Clemson, we know what they may have with this quarterback. Now, I think this kid against North Carolina played incredible. But against the bowl game, when the team had an opportunity to game plan against them, he did. I think that doesn't mean he's going to be bad. I just think I'm glad we're getting him early as opposed to getting him later. You've got one premier pass rusher, one budding pass rusher, with a bunch of guys that are going to be coming back. And Clemson hasn't recruited as strong as they have, on top of the fact that they got a new offense, and their offense hasn't been clicking like it should have been. So I think what I tell people, the biggest thing that you got to look at Florida State last year is when Mike Norvell took the governor off of the offense, was after the Clemson loss. Florida State's offense looked so much more explosive in the latter half of the season than they did, especially when they did in that 3-game skid. I think that's the new case, and I also think Jordan Travis's mindset coming back into this season wasn't to just, I don't even care if it was just to win compete for a national championship and win an ACC. It's a team game that has to be played with a little bit of selfishness. His mentality coming back is, I've got to get drafted. And the only way that that's going to happen is if he becomes the X factor that I believe he can be, and with the ability to take over games. And I think and with Trayshawn Ward being gone, you'll probably see more of an emphasis on him actually pulling the ball and scrambling more. If he does that against Clemson, if he does that against North Carolina State, I do believe Florida State wins those 2 games. I think I think our offense will help our defense, and that's the reason why I believe Florida State can go 12-0. But I do believe Clemson will be the team that they will meet in the ACC championship. They beat them early. I don't know. It's very difficult to beat the same team twice in the season.
Mike, I have a quick question for both James and Logan. I want to ask you guys this. I'm going to go to Logan first and then ask James. I think we can all agree that LSU and Clemson are the two toughest teams on Florida State's
I always
schedule
love
right
how
now.
I get left out of the questions, and
Fine,
it's my
Mark.
channel and my show.
Mark, you can answer the question too, but these two are Florida State graduates. We were at Florida State.
Well, you're
campus.
not
You know
asking
what?
them about the backup
what?
left guard.
You know
You can
what?
leave me out of those questions.
I'll ask you about why Ohio State dropped Washington later. We'll ask you about that one in a moment. But Mark, you can jump in here on this one too.
Thank you.
But
Appreciate
first,
that.
You're welcome. First of all, Logan and James. We all would say that LSU and Clemson are probably the two toughest teams right now on Florida State's schedule as we do this show in the middle of February. What other team on the schedule, I guess, do you have concerns about? I guess, and Logan obviously doesn't want to answer the question, so we'll go to James next. James, what is the team right now in the Mark that you have a concern about other than Clemson and LSU that gives you the most worry?
Pitt, and it's because we play there. And Pitt brings a different flavor of offense and team than we were used to see. It's kind of like when Boston College first came. I tell people Boston College was a bigger, thicker team. They weren't like the other teams that we played where we can utilize our speed, we can utilize different things. Pitt's going to be physical. They're going to run the ball. And when I look at what some of our weaknesses were last season, that was against the run against bigger teams. So like with Florida, if Florida doesn't decide to get cute and fling the ball, they probably could have just ran the ball down our throat and won the game. But that's where I believe, the cool thing is that FSU's offense kind of forced Florida to have to continue to press the issue. So like if you can run, you can eat up the clock, but if we're going to score quick and force you to change your offense, I think that's where Florida State would have to come in, get up 14 on them quick, and change the way that the way Pitt has to play offense. Because as Logan suggested about his favorite NFL team winning the AFC North, Kenny Pickett isn't walking out of that locker room.
We all know the Steelers aren't winning the AFC North, but Logan, who do you have right there? Obviously, other than Clemson and LSU, who do you have right now? Little man making a shout-out appearance here on the show from Jacksonville.
Outside of those two, I think the travel to Pittsburgh will be big, and that will be a big learning lesson too for maybe some of the younger guys that'll be playing in that game. I mean, you'd have a lot of experience coming through all the way till November, but that one's going to be, I think, a test. I was expecting a lot more out of Pittsburgh this last year, just the way that they started their season, and they've kind of grown a good fan base there, and they built a good, I don't know, electric crowd kind of feel. So they're going to bring that. Last time Florida State was there was in 2013. So I don't think they're going to be seeking for revenge, but this will be a game with a lot of storylines. Definitely if Florida State is playing to the caliber that we think they are, there's going to be a lot of talk and chatter about the last time Florida State went up there with Jameis Winston and started that whole campaign to win the 2013 national championship. So I'd go with Pittsburgh being probably a tough one there. I'm trying to find one though that's outside of that. It used to be whenever Virginia Tech and Florida State played, those used to be some tight, pretty close games. That's just not the case anymore. I'd like to see Virginia Tech make it a game because that would be a fun one to have after a bye week on October 7th. But I'm actually, I can't believe I'm forgetting this. Florida State plays Duke next year.
I was going to say,
Duke had a really nice season last year, and they got a quarterback too that not a lot of people talked about. And that's kind of the case for a lot of ACC quarterbacks, unless you're playing for Clemson. But now Jordan Travis is starting to get some attention, a little too late in my opinion. But this young quarterback for Duke is probably going to play pretty well in 2023. And I'd look at that game to not overlook it, because I'm no longer looking at Wake Forest anymore now that Hartman's gone after his 16th year. I think with Duke, after that Syracuse game, will be pretty fun. And that quarterback is someone I'm keeping a close eye on, and the coaching staff that they put together there. It's a team that will battle all the way until the end. So that one might be one that out of nowhere, an FSU versus Duke 8 p.m. kickoff, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm agreeing with Logan, but I think it's Duke as well. I think Duke, especially when you're coming off whatever happens in the first 4 games happens, but you're going to have a Virginia Tech team that, if we're going by what they were last season, was a bad football team, and a Syracuse team that started hot and then lost, I believe it was 6 of their last 7 games at the end of the season, including getting blown out 38-3 by Florida State. So for me, Duke is that question mark at that point. If Florida State's going to come in and then have to play, I think that's arguably an offense intended to the Miami fans watching this show. I think Duke is our toughest home game next season. Mark, what do you got?
Well, first of all, I think the ceiling is 12-0 because for the first time since probably 2016, Florida State, from a talent perspective, doesn't have to look up at anybody on the schedule. They can look eye to eye with Clemson and LSU, and then they're better than everybody else. So there's my ceiling, 12-0. My basement's more like in the 8-4 range. My floor, I think, right with James and with Logan, Pitt is the game that would scare me. Pat Narduzzi's built a defense that, if you look at their defensive line play, they've been in the top 3 or 4 in the nation in sacks like 5 consecutive years. On the road in November, could be a little bit chilly. Phil Jurkovec, coming in from Boston College, I think is a really good quarterback who may have a much better offensive line than he's been playing with at BC. But if we take Pitt out of the mix, and now that we've taken Duke out of the mix because Mike Elko did a crazy good job with them, and they've got their starting quarterback Riley Leonard coming back, you know who I'm going to throw out there as a big wild card is Miami, just because from a talent perspective, they're in the ballpark. Now, if Tyler Van Dyke, and they've got 2 new coordinators that could provide something that they didn't have last year, because even though they've got somewhat of an all-star coaching staff last year, it just was dysfunctional.
I wanted to say Miami, but I think Miami has to play. We talked about this when the schedule came out. Miami has a very easy schedule if you go by the talent they have on their roster. If Miami comes into that game, into that Florida State game, for that point, they'll have 9 games so far in that season. If they come in 7-2, for example, 7-2 or 8-1, with their losses being to, let's say, North Carolina and Clemson or one of those 2, Miami is a very scary team. But also, and I'm just saying this because it's a factual statement, Miami's going to Miami a couple games. There's going to be at least 2 games, along with Clemson and Clemson and North Carolina, that Miami's going to lose, that they have no business losing. Is it going to be Texas A&M? Is it going to be Georgia Tech? Is it going to be Virginia? There's going to be at least 2 games that Miami's going to come in. Miami's going to limp into Tallahassee with a 5-4 record at best and go, what the hell happened? So that's why I agree with you. I think Miami has the talent, but I don't think Miami has proven it.
I think they have an offensive coordinator that's more conducive to Tyler Van Dyke's style of play, but he's also been relieved of play calling duties in the last 2 stops that he's been at. To quote, when he left Southern Miss, a fan said, "I would rather sandpaper a crocodile's butthole than to see him call offensive plays for Southern Miss again." That's not a glowing, that's more of an indictment than it is an accolade. And God, the man's name forgot me, but slipped me, the defensive coordinator. I do know Willie Taggart had, Guidry. Willie Taggart had him. I mean, that lets you know already. That was originally supposed to be Willie Taggart's special teams coordinator, but Florida State compliance would not clear him. So he's been let go at a few stops too. So, I mean, that doesn't mean that they won't be good here at Miami, but you can't get rid of your coordinators or lose your coordinators 2 weeks before spring ball, because now it's 2 things are going to happen. Either those guys are of the same ilk as your last 2 coordinators, which shouldn't make Miami fans feel good. That means you have a run-first offensive coordinator. He's not. And they use similar terminology. Or they have to come in and they have to unlearn and then relearn, which I don't think people realize how. This is why when people say athletes are stupid, I would like to see people go into a meeting room and learn terminology, learn what has to happen with it. It's literally a foreign language that you're learning on the go. It is going to be hard to install that, to get the coaches on the same page in 2 weeks, because he's lost 5 assistants. You lost your Kevin Smith, your running back. You lost your running back coach, and you lost Charlie Strong, your linebackers coach that you got to replace, which you replaced with Derek Nicholson. But it's just a lot of, as nice as it sounds to be able to, turn over the staff this late in the process. If Miami does overcome that, then kudos to. I would probably be more apt to give the Lion Cuban a little bit more props.
Let's all keep this in mind as well, and that's a great point. And certainly, coordinator turnover. James just explained it extremely well, better than I could or have ever experienced. That, yeah, to have to get comfortable with a position coach, with a new coordinator, all of that changing.
My bad, Mark.
The terminology.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Mark. My bad. I just thought about it. I could actually give you a real life example. So we had Jimmy Higgins going into my senior year. Jeff Bowden was the coordinator, but Bobby wanted to go to the spread because that was the new cool thing, the vogue thing. So they went and got Mark McHale, who was the offensive coordinator at Marshall, and Marshall was doing really, really good things at that time. They brought Mark McHale. We went from saying, this was our plays, 34 belly, 44, pass 44, 60 jet. That was our, 60 jet, ready, break. That was the play calls. 2, 60 zip motion, Bama Bravo, trying to think, switch, RB Will.
Can you repeat that?
I can't.
And those two were the same play.
Same play.
Yeah.
But in that play, I went from 3 years of having simplicity to, in that play was check calls, offensive line, what they do. If we're playing a team that runs a 3-4 and they shift to what we consider a Bears front, then, we'll do this. And it's just like so much stuff that we had to learn. And that was difficult. And they made that switch in January. I can only imagine if I had to have done that in 2 weeks. Then you come in and you're training. And it's just, it's just a lot of things that, again, it's really no trolling in that. It's just, I'm like, there's a huge, then I had to unlearn that when I went to New Orleans, and I can't even repeat the paragraphs that Sean Payton would give us. You have to unlearn. Well, you kind of don't unlearn. You take, like you just said, it was the same play. You take the play and you remember the basics of it, and you kind of compare it to the new play, and so that you kind of know. But even then, that gets confusing. So I just a personal example with that.
Well, that's a great example. I will say that, and this is probably the aberration, that when Michigan went from a bad 2020 COVID year to a college football playoff team, they pretty much overhauled the entire coaching staff on both sides of the ball. And most of those guys, a lot of them stepped into the role like 2 and 3 days into spring practice, and they pulled it off that year. Again, probably the aberration. And then one other stat to possibly shake us up a little bit in terms of our preconceived notions about how good these teams are going to be. I go through a little exercise every off season because I noticed that all the big publications like Street and Smiths and Athlons, they're very conservative with their predictions. If you're 8-4 last year, they're probably going to pick 8-4 again this year. They only change up records or expect only a handful of teams to either ascend or decline considerably. So I made the bar a 3-game increase or decrease in wins or losses for a particular from season to season. So if you go 6-6, to go 9-3 the next year is obviously a substantial improvement, or vice versa, going from 6-6 to 3-9. Guess how many teams in the ACC from 2021 to 22 out of 14 either increased or decreased their win total by at least 3 games?
Florida State.
Duke.
Clemson didn't. Duke. So Florida State, Duke. Pitt.
Syracuse is bowl eligible, so they had to get close.
Yeah, but they finished 7-6. I'm gonna say Pitt. So I say
Wasn't
3.
Pitt in the ACC championship the year
Oh,
before?
that's right. Never mind. You're right.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Well,
So
not
Duke
Pitt.
Duke and Florida State.
The for the Power 5, I thought I had the number here.
Louisville.
So anyway, I'm going to make a video of this. It's usually between like 17 and 22 teams out of the 65 in the Power 5, and this past season it was 27. So that's almost half the teams in the Power 5 had that much of an upgrade or a downgrade in one year. So, you know, these teams turn over. Wake did. They were 10-2. They went from 10-2 to 7-5. Boston College went from 7-5 to 3-9, or 6-6 to 3-9. Florida State, I forget how many teams in the ACC. It was at least 5.
So I want to ask a follow-up question to all three of you real quick before I head out. So, Mark, you said that Miami is one team that you are looking at that on Florida State's schedule other than LSU and Clemson, kind of that other team on the schedule. And we talked about it a lot. So I guess my question to the three of you is, if you're Florida State, we're all Florida State supporters here. I'm giving you an honorary Florida State fandom here, Mark. Are you more, which team concerns you more? And I think we're all kind of in consensus here, Miami or Florida? Because not one of us is talking about Florida. And let's all remember, Florida came into Tallahassee last year and gave us a heck of a game in the last game of the season. So, but do you have more concern about Florida or Miami this season?
Miami. Florida had 9 players invited to the combine. Like Florida was a poorly coached football team. Like they have talent. And then if you look at the offensive linemen that left, and again, just look at what they have in attrition and what they have to come back and back that up, is they don't have a quarterback that anybody should fear. And regardless of what anybody has to say, there is a reason why Anthony Richardson is considered a potential first-round draft pick at quarterback. If you look at his just tools, he reminds you of a black Josh Allen. So like we went up against that. Now Miami, you know, they have some guys that they recruited that they're going to have to rely on that are freshmen. And then they have some inherent talent that's coming back. I would just argue they have a better roster right now. I still think they're a poorly coached football team, but I would say that they have more talent, and that's why I would, argue now about Miami. Also, Miami will always play up for Florida State in that game. That's their Super Bowl, whether they want to admit it or not, which is why it benefits Miami more than us to play us in November, because, if they played us in October, the likelihood of them taking the season after the loss or win would be what they've done consistently. Whereas Florida, when we played them that last game in the swamp, they could have a season in disarray because their schedule is very difficult. They could legitimately only win 4 or 5 games. So that's kind of just the reason why I think Miami over Florida.
Logan, you've always been siding more on Florida's side than Miami's side when those two teams play. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think Florida lost too many people. Let's be honest. I mean, god dang, this whole offseason, it's left and right. They're losing talent. Like James said, a lot of talent that played against FSU that is moving on and going to go move into the next level and going to be competing to get drafted. That's literally all they had left there to play with this last season. Now I feel like this is the first year in Florida for to kind of build back up a little bit, because they lost too many people, too much talent, had to make some changes, and that's understandable. That's fine. But it was a good game that they had brought inside Doak for sure. And a large part of that came from Anthony Richardson. He's not here anymore. And if I'm looking ahead now at their quarterback situation with the Wisconsin transfer as Adam Fuller, Florida State's defensive coordinator, I'm licking my chops at already game planning that one. I mean, it doesn't look pretty for what Florida's going to do. And that doesn't seem like they're going to, unless something happens in the spring for them. And if they're going to go that route and continue to play with him, I forget his name, some with an M at the end.
Graham Mertz.
Yeah. Have fun. Have fun. It doesn't concern me so much anymore. I thought Florida was going to be a better competitor, like you said, Jason, than Miami. And, sure enough, I think Florida's just a year out behind of that, just like what Miami just went through. And Miami's trying to do their thing, but I think Florida's in a pretty tough spot right now. And, national media is not expecting a lot from them this next year. And, of course, the schedule is absolutely awful for them. I mean,
they could lose 2 of their first 3 games, Utah and Tennessee. I mean, they could easily start the year 1-2. Don't get me wrong, we could start off 2-2 as well, but yeah.
It just doesn't seem good. But at least, Florida's just not there yet unless we hear some good things coming out of camp from them down in Gainesville. I mean, they don't pose a threat to me if I'm Florida State at this moment in time. And with what Florida State's been able to do also in the transfer portal, I mean, this is their best class they brought in. So I don't know. Not too worried about UF right now. Miami is I think there's just better opponents in the ACC that Florida State's going to face, like Clemson and Duke.
Honorary Noel, Mark, what do you think?
I can't really add too much to what those two said. I don't think their quarterback situation is what they want. Mertz was, he was a 5-star coming out of high school, but he was lousy at Wisconsin, and he had plenty of time, 2.5 seasons to show that he was a different player, and he's not. And that was with a great running game to support him. So, and the Ohio State transfer probably is not the answer, the one that they started in the bowl game, Jack Miller. So, yeah, Florida's got a lot of work to do against a very difficult schedule. And by the way, that's 7 teams in the ACC that either increased or decreased by 3 wins from 21 to 22.
So before I go, and I will not be here next week for the 200th episode, I apologize because, hold on, I'll be interviewing Mike Norvell as he's here in Miami. So before I go, each one of you, one question that I get to ask Mike Norvell. James is going to make it a good one. Mark is going to make it a good one. Logan, no profanities. Go.
I was going to ask him what his favorite go-to drink is, adult drink, but
okay,
because it's not my interview, I don't have to say it to his face, so just use you, Jason, to get that through there. I like that. I'd like to see him explain, because I think a lot of FSU fans, once we get to spring camp, are going to want to know this. What they're going to do with Jaheim Bell, the South Carolina tight end transfer. I'd be interested to pick his brain on that and see what the game plan for him is, because that was a player that entered the transfer portal. A lot of schools came calling, and for some reason he picks Florida State. So I'm interested to see what he told Jaheim Bell that they're going to use him as in this offense.
Big game, James.
Is he interested in creating another? Just all off-field coaches can actually coach in practice. Is he interested in getting a fullback position coach? Because I think there's so much more that we could do with DJ Lundy in that position. One, I need him to. He just needs somebody to whisper in his ear. Don't get cute on the 1-yard line. It's 2 plays. With 3 plays. You only need these, Mike. 34 belly or 34 wham. 34 pitch back, which is you fake the wham and then you pitch it to the tailback on the backside. And then basically the play that everybody believes that John Gruden invented, the spotted to Banana. With Jaheim Bell, Murlock, Biscuit, the Johnny Wilson, and you have Trey Benson. It's damn near impossible to stop it. Especially if you fake them. You're either going to take Trey and respect the run, and then you got everybody else wide open. If you don't want to use Jaheim, keep DJ in there. We've seen them catch a touchdown before. So, it's just perfect. Only those 3 plays. That's all you need, your whole goal line package.
Do you want me to forward your resume to him for that fullback?
Yes, you can tell him that you kind of know a guy that,
I know a guy
that had 10 career touchdowns that knows a thing or two about how to do stuff.
Single-handedly beat Miami in 2005. I know. I got it. I remember that. Mark, what you got?
Logan, Jason, and myself, for the record, are all tied behind James in career touchdowns. we're trying to break that tie.
Yep.
I would ask one Pop Warner, I think. Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Well, if we're going to go that far down, then maybe I, have tacked on a few.
Go ahead.
I would ask him, was there a play? Was there a game? Or maybe it was something that nobody saw. Was it something somebody said? Was it a day at practice where he thought, okay, I think we've turned the corner. I think we've got this headed in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
I like that one. So get James a job in Tallahassee. Prophetic question from Mark and Logan with an actually good one. I like this. All right, we're going to have a good interview. So come back on the 29th. I will come back and we will have a complete recap. And you can always check out on NBCMiami.com and on Channel 6 down here in Miami.
And, of course, you're going to get us an interview with Coach Norvell as well.
We'll see. I mean, depending on the time. If you don't think I will try, and I just got the phone right here. We got the iPhone 14s. Just hold it up there. I'm just saying. If we can make it happen, we will bring it to you next week.
Phenomenal. Jason, doing good work for us. William, thank you so much for the super chat. We appreciate you. Let's go around the horn here. Jason has left us, but James, where do people need to find you?
Right now, all I need people to do is go to @Den Media Group on YouTube. And don't go to my IG. Don't go to my Twitter. I need you to go to @Den Media Group. I need you to subscribe. And then what I need you to do is consider becoming a member. We got memberships from $3.99 all the way up to $99.99. Now that one is pretty pricey, but if you're in that club, you get an opportunity to experience games and things like me. So like if we would have had members there, if you would have been out in Phoenix, you would have been in the Puma Gifted Suite, you would have been in Adidas Suite. I would have made sure the Rick Ross party, you would have been everywhere that I go. When you get those kind of things, but $3.99, that's where we're releasing our interviews, some of the different interview series that we have. We're bringing Inside Drills back, and we're bringing Dope Boys back. So those are going to be really, like, we'll release those once a week, but once we get all of them edited, it's almost like Netflix. You'll be able to watch everything all at once if you would like to. If not, we'll trickle them out once a week during the off season. So practice reports, all those kind of different things will be there. That's just really what I'm trying. We're trying to get Den Media Group to 2,000 subs. Once we get to 2,000 subs, live on my show, we will give away $200. We get to 3,000 subs, live on my show, we'll give away $300. So like if you're on the show, and we've done that over Christmas. We did that with Jaguars tickets and we did it with money. So somebody would come in, my guy Miles will literally take the names down. We'll put them in a random picker. At the end of the show, we pick the people randomly, and pick your Cash App or Apple Pay or whatever you got, and we shoot you the dough.
I was looking for that on Instagram. You said Den Media Group, right?
Yeah, but that's on YouTube. Our Instagram is SportsDen_live. Yeah, okay. I only want YouTube. Just right now, I need everybody focused. I don't want to tell you 20 things. Just at YouTube, if you're listening right now, just go in the search bar. If you have YouTube, the YouTube Premium, you'll still be able to watch us. Just go to the search bar, type in Den Media Group, click on that subscribe real quick, and consider being a member. We greatly appreciate it.
Okay. Well, Logan's talking. We're going to drop that link. I've got the link, and we're going to drop it right in the chat.
Yeah, nothing crazy going on. Just got an episode tonight at 8 with Dustin. Just he and I going to look at some spring camp storylines that we'll be jumping into. Just a few, nothing too crazy, probably 45-minute to an hour episode this week. And then I would suggest everybody go back and watch on Monday night the video that we have with Brian Stork, his new Calculated Chaos series that we began. Loving the start so far. Something different, something a little bit more laid back, but really hands-on with film look. And, he's a freak with it. He loves watching films. So 2013 national champion, Remington Award winner, Super Bowl champion, was a center for Jameis Winston and Tom Brady in back-to-back years. A lot of rings, so highly suggest you guys go listen to that. Loving the feedback so far on social media, and so pushing a lot of that show throughout the rest of the season. Our next episode will be the 2013 Clemson Rewind with a few former teammates that we're excited to announce soon. So looking forward to that. But appreciate you, Mark, as always, having me on here.
Thank you, Logan. And everybody follow Logan. You see it there. Logan's Twitty, and we dropped the link in the chat to Den Media Group. So there are no excuses, folks. You just grab the link. It's easy. Click on the link. You're right there. Subscribe. All right, guys. Appreciate you being here, making this work, because without you two, we don't have a show. So thanks so much for doing it and being here and supporting what we do here at the Voice of College Football. You guys have a great week.
Thank you, Mark.